The first thing the United States should do is make sure that the IMF, which of course is just code for U.S. taxpayers, since we're the biggest so-called shareholder, we should make sure that the IMF doesn't take part in any bailouts of Europe's profligate governments. The IMF, I assume most of you are familiar with the term moral hazard. Moral hazard is the idea that you don't want to give people an incentive to do something stupid. So if I have an old junker $5,000 car and an insurance company is willing to insure it for $20,000, what am I going to do? I'm going to leave my $5,000 car in a bad neighborhood so it gets stolen. Or I'm just going to set it on fire. I'm going to drive it into a lake because, hey, I spent $5,000 for the car. Look, the insurance company just gave me $20,000. When the IMF does bailouts, it in effect does two really bad things. First, it tells the investors who bought, say, the Argentinian government bonds, oh, don't worry about it. We'll cover your losses. And it tells the Argentinian politicians that overspent, oh, don't worry about it. We'll do a bailout when you get to a crisis. That's moral hazard 101. It's a very, very bad idea. And to the extent that the IMF participated in the bailout of Greece, that was very unfortunate. And to the extent that the IMF would be part of any sort of so-called rescue package, I don't like calling it a rescue package because all it does is it just blows the bubble up even bigger. I mean, what is it? There are some places that have had more than 20 IMF rescue packages since World War II. Those obviously aren't rescue packages. They're just repeated bailouts based on moral hazard, and everyone learns you could play the game over and over again because you're going to have these idiots from the IMF in Washington coming in and bailing out your bad mistakes. So what should we do other than making sure we use our power at the IMF to avoid bailouts? Nothing. What can we do? I mean, in theory, if we had some sort of economic czar that we could appoint and saying, okay, Italy, you have to cut your government spending. Greece, you have to privatize your state-owned companies. Spain, you have to get rid of your generous welfare payments that encourage people not to work. I mean, but we don't have that power. I mean, these countries simply have to learn to live or die on their own. And one of the best ways of having people learn not to touch a hot stove is when they burn their fingers. And so if Greece had been allowed to genuinely go bankrupt in 2009, Italy would have learned a lesson, I think. Maybe not, but it's much more likely. I'll put it this way. It's much more likely Italy would have learned a lesson if Greece had been allowed to genuinely go bankrupt. But because Greece got a bailout, you're an Italian politician, you're looking at that saying, let's keep the party going. Because even though it might not be a smart idea, we'll probably get bailed out as well. By the way, when Italy collapses, that does not mean the euro collapses. As long as the European Central Bank maintains its independence, which I doubt, but if they maintain their independence and say, well, you made your mess, Italy, you sleep in it. It's sort of like Illinois will probably be the first American state to go bankrupt, even faster than California. When Illinois collapses and defaults, does Washington have to do anything? Does the Fed? No. The Fed and Washington politicians, everyone should just sort of say, oh, well, we feel sorry for the people who were dumb enough to buy Illinois government bonds, but they made that choice. They took that risk. That's their business. So the best response when a government gets in trouble is for everyone else to do nothing.